Part 125. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1250. Latest website. The clarion call for Wall Street's attack has been sounded. Ordinary investors may not know it, but large financial institutions such as banks are definitely insiders. Even if Su Yurong wanted to mortgage his equity to the bank at this moment, the bank might not dare to take it. If the building really collapsed, 80% of Su Yurong's wealth would be burned down. After changing her clothes, Su Yurong rushed to the company. She first learned about the situation, and then contacted Jin Wanlian on the phone, asking her to help United Capital maintain the market value of tens of billions no matter what, and that she would promote it. The board of directors conducts share repurchases. One morning, it can be said that people were in panic. Hong Kong stocks fell for 6 consecutive days, with Cheung Kong Holdings plunging 30% and the Hang Seng Index plummeting 5,000 points. Lu Feng went to the exchange early. As soon as the market opened, many stocks plummeted, and the Hong Kong dollar also fell crazily. The total number of orders sold exceeded 10 billion. The market was under pressure and there was no way to turn back. No. This won't work, Lu Feng looked at it and shook his head. From the buyer's point of view, they still implement the method of blocking the line and holding the Hong Kong dollar and Hong Kong stocks in a defensive position that cannot be penetrated. This kind of positional warfare can't hold it back. It's gone, it's all gone. A man in his 40s sat on a chair in the trading hall with tears streaming down his face. The atmosphere in the hall was lifeless, and everyone's faces were covered with dark clouds. Lu Feng walked out of the trading hall, took out his mobile phone and called the Financial Monetary Authority. After the call was connected, Lu Feng said, "I am Lu Feng from Hurricane Capital. Today has been the 6th consecutive decline. This defensive method will not work. The most important thing in this environment is confidence, which keeps falling. Whether it is the Hong Kong dollar or the stock market, everyone's confidence is gone, and those who are long have become short, and in the end, the whole people are helping them to do short. What are you calling me for? Do you want to teach me how to do things? Mr. Lu, we have a complete set of procedures here. We are professionals. It's not like you can tell us what to do when you come back." The call came directly from the other end of the phone. Cut off Lu Feng's words. "I was discussing things. It's up to us to do this, okay? You don't need to teach us how to do it. We are more mature than you in terms of finance. Don't call me again, do you understand?" the other end of the phone said with a scolding tone. I hung up the phone immediately. Lu Feng stood there with an ugly expression. History has not changed after all. They have to wait until the funds are exhausted and they are unable to defend themselves. The situation will only ease after the mainland funds are gone. Lu Feng turned around and called the special office and talked about the problem. The other end of the phone asked Lu Feng to pay attention to the impact. Don't make a fuss if there is any problem. You must understand them. Anyway, the main word is tolerance. After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng didn't want to worry about it anymore. Just be tolerant. Anyway, there are 90 billion tossing, and he will be honest when the tossing is over. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, as the market closed, Hong Kong stocks fell by more than 5%, and the decline in individual stocks was even more horrific. Hong Kong dollar futures trading dropped from the anchored level of 7.8 yuan to below 6.5 yuan. The exchange rate remains stable at 7.8 yuan. But how long it can last, no one knows. At around 4 o'clock, Lu Feng received a call from Su Yurong. When he answered the phone, the person on the other end yelled. It could be heard that she was in a bad mood, even a little crazy. "You tricked me, right? You knew all this a long time ago, and you still didn't let me pledge my equity. What will happen in the next few months? Rumors are spreading throughout the circle that Zhangjiang's financial status is not guaranteed. Is it easy for me to make some money? Su Yurong cursed. You just think I'm too good, so why bother with me? Xiangjiang is in a mess. Even if you get United Capital, how much money will you have? When did I say I wanted to take United Capital? Lu Feng asked. The other end of the phone was speechless for a moment, and accidentally said what was in his heart. Su Yurong paused for a moment, then changed the subject and said, "You need me to explain today. Where are you now? I'll go find you at the entrance of the exchange. Don't worry, I'm a responsible person. As long as it's caused by me, I'll pay for it," Lu Feng shouted angrily at the phone and then hung up. After getting in the car, Lu Feng went straight to the cafe downstairs of the United Capital building. As soon as the car parked, he saw many people surrounding the side of the building, as well as police cars and ambulances. "What's going on?" Lu Feng asked casually. An old lady in her 60s said to Lu Feng with an exaggerated expression, "Someone jumped off the building. I heard that she opened an account with United Capital. She was highly leveraged and directly sold her position. I came here today to tell someone from United Securities I wanted to pay less, but I didn't agree and just jumped off the building. So stock trading will ruin your life, it's a leveraged cremator," Lu Feng couldn't help but sigh. After the scene was dealt with, the police began to disperse the crowd. Lu Feng walked towards the cafe, where Su Yurong was already waiting in the booth. Different from her usual glamorous appearance, Su Yurong today didn't even put on makeup. She was wearing a professional suit, her hair was disheveled, her brows were furrowed, and she had to hide away from the smelly-looking dog. Lu Feng sat down, looked at her and said, "It's a good day for a working young woman." Su Yurong raised her head, stared at Lu Feng, and said, "You did it on purpose, didn't you? How is it possible? I am really unjust. I went to the meeting and was told that the superiors were negotiating. At the same time, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority had 90 billion and there were no problems. Who knew the minions of imperialism were so cunning? Let's do it," Lu Feng said with an innocent face. "No one wants to see it like this, but now that it's over, we can only carry it on. There won't be any problems, don't worry." Am I reassured? How can I be reassured? Su Yurong was in a mess at the moment. She was not only afraid that the stock price would fall and Lu Feng would take the opportunity to acquire it, but she was also afraid that, as rumored by the outside world, Xiangjiang would lose its global financial status and United Capital's value would shrink tenfold. Light. Lu Feng comforted her and promised to tell her as soon as possible if there was any news later. Xiangjiang was absolutely fine and would only get better and better. But these words fell in Su Yurong's ears, and there was quite an illusion that the securities company was saying that the stock was good. The future would not be better, but now it was just to stabilize you and not let you run away. After 2 hours of conversation, Su Yurong's mood became more stable. She proposed a backup agreement with Lu Feng. 10 months later, if Xiangjiang's finances could not recover, Lu Feng would buy Su Yurong at a valuation of $5 billion. Rong holds a 40% stake in United Capital. Where can such an agreement be signed? Lu Feng frowned. Then how to calculate this loss? I could have run away, but now I can't. Didn't you say that Xiangjiang must be good? Since Xiangjiang is getting better and better, why are you unwilling to take over United Capital? This is a money-making machine. Su Yurong stared at Lu Feng and said aggressively, "That means you know the reason, but you were lying to me just now." "I didn't lie to you," Lu Feng said helplessly. "Then sign it." Su Yurong took out the agreement and put it directly on the table. Lu Feng briefly read the contents of the agreement. She came prepared. If the market value of United Capital is less than $5 billion in 10 months, Lu Feng will have to enter the market as the bottom player. If it is more than $5 billion, if it is less than $8 billion, the acquisition will be based on market value. If it is more than 8 billion, the agreement will be invalid. This is not a cover-up agreement, this is a big injustice agreement. Lu Feng knew what she was thinking. 10 months later, the market value of United Capital was less than 5 billion, indicating that Zhangjiang's finance had completely collapsed. From 5 billion to 8 billion, it was possible that Xiangjiang would gradually lose its global financial status and be higher than this value is no problem. If Lu Feng didn't sign today's agreement, given her character, she would definitely mortgage all the equity to the bank, exchange it for cash and wait and see. Even if it was a 20% discount, or even a 10% discount, she would have to mortgage it. This is a woman who is extremely sensitive to risks. Lu Feng was not afraid that she would run away with the cash, but that after the crisis was over in 2 months, this woman would most likely not redeem the equity, but would directly use the money and leverage to push the stock price back. At that time, Lu Feng would be in trouble. Okay. I'll sign. Lu Feng took the agreement and signed his name at the signature place. Make a fingerprint. Su Yorong took out a box of ink pad and placed it next to him. You're so damn prepared. Lu Feng pressed his fingerprints and sighed, nothing in this world is 100%. The reason why I signed this agreement is because it has been so easy over the years. I am still love you. Su Yorong put away the agreement, her expression was a little moved, her eyes were a little less sharp, she stood up and walked to Lu Feng, lowered her head and kissed him twice on the lips, and said, I love you too. There are quite a lot of things to do, and they are all in public. I'm going back first. I'm going back to the mainland in a few days. My children are going to school, and there are some parent-teacher meetings that I have to attend. Lu Feng stood up and said, don't think so much, it's not that much. Big risk. Su Yorong nodded obediently, feeling much relieved, and said, a customer just jumped off the building, I have to deal with it. Go ahead, your customers may have suffered a lot of losses recently. After leaving the coffee shop, Lu Feng returned home and called Duo first, promising to go back and buy her a mobile phone. However, Zhang Xiaoyan did not agree with this. After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng received another call from the special office, asking Lu Feng to go over for a meeting to study the current situation. It was already 9 o'clock in the evening when he arrived. They gathered just after 10 o'clock and briefly explained the situation. Currently, half of Hong Kong's 90 billion has been consumed. What to do when the market opens tomorrow is a problem. Moreover, Wall Street has a feeling that the more it hits, the harder it gets. With this method, everyone believes that more than 40 billion is absolutely unstoppable. Now there are two choices, Hong Kong dollars and Hong Kong stocks. According to the recent remarks made by Goldman Sachs President Cozy, they are quite well prepared. Soros has also frequently spoken out in the Wall Street Journal, and international hot money from around the world has been attracted. If the worst happens, you can only choose one between Hong Kong dollars and Hong Kong stocks. Lu Feng sat aside and said nothing, just spinning the carbon pen in his hand. Everyone was discussing fiercely whether Hong Kong dollars or Hong Kong stocks. Hong Kong stocks represented companies and retail investors. All companies went bankrupt or were controlled by foreign capital. The situation was very bad. But once the Hong Kong dollar loses its freely convertible liquidity, Hong Kong will also withdraw from the world financial stage. Lu Feng, tell me. Lu Feng put down the pen in his hand, raised his head and said, without the Hong Kong dollar, there will be no Hong Kong stocks. It is nothing more than a matter of long-term pain and short-term pain, so we must have them all. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1251. Latest website. There were many big names at the scene, but in terms of experience in financial confrontation, I am afraid that only Lu Feng was the only one, especially when facing Soros. Lu Feng won last year. Everyone still attaches great importance to Lu Feng's opinions. But now we don't know the situation of the other party. If the funds are spread too thinly on both ends, we will get nothing, someone suggested. Lu Feng knew that these people were different from him. They had tasks to deliver. If you could keep one of the Hong Kong dollars and the Hong Kong stocks, you could fool them. If you couldn't keep both, then your job would be a problem. I think everyone should not be scared by Wall Street. They don't have much capital. How many Hong Kong dollars are there overseas? How many short orders can the banks in Hong Kong give them? How much capital are they willing to put down? These are all things that need to be considered. At the same time, I am very dissatisfied with the current situation. When dealing with European and American people, one thing to pay attention to is that they will take the hard and not the soft. If you deal with them obediently, then it's easy to talk to others, but if you show weakness, they will pounce on you. In the current situation, I personally feel that we should take the initiative. We will certainly not be able to defeat Wall Street in one go, but we can bury a batch of international hot money and give long investors great confidence. We must win over enough friends to be a leader in Hong Kong stocks. Hong Kong dollar futures can bring profits and enemies will become friends. Many people at the scene agreed with Lu Feng's idea, but a few people from the local financial management bureau looked unhappy and sat there in silence. Let's talk about this today. We need to make further research and judgment based on the situation. After the meeting, Lu Feng was called to the side hall. Lu Feng looked at some of the main people in charge and said, "This kind of passive approach is very frustrating. Nowadays, whether it is among the people or the business community, people's hearts are full of dissatisfaction in a state of panic. While the Hong Kong Monetary Authority still has tens of billions, it should take the initiative to boost the Hong Kong dollar and Hong Kong stocks and release positive signals to the outside world." Mr. Lu, I agree with your approach, but it's not just about finance. We also need to pay attention to unity and pay attention to our speech. I have to remind you a few words on this point. If you want to use your strength to achieve one goal, you must first be united. Lu Feng thought about these two sentences and said nothing more. He nodded and said, "It seems that only those who save people in danger can be heroes, not those who prevent problems before they happen." Several people laughed when they heard this. "Then I won't worry about it blindly. My children will start school in a few days and I will go back to Shenzhen. Contact me anytime if you need it," Lu Feng said. After saying goodbye, Lu Feng drove straight to his small financial team. Because he had been notified in advance, a dozen or so people were still having a fake meeting when he went. However, the poker and chess hidden under the desk were still betrayed. Their daily activities. "Hello, Mr. Lu," Manager Lu stood up and said, "We are in a meeting to make a comprehensive study and judgment on the current situation of the Hong Kong stock market, and to make an analysis and judgment on United Capital's subsequent capital turnover, sustainable profitability, and securities market." Lu Feng looked at his serious nonsense, nodded silently, sat down and said, "What is the current stock price of United Capital?" "It has dropped to 21 yuan. They withdrew from the stock repurchase plan today, but the price was set at 15 yuan. As a bottom-line repurchase, market expectations are very pessimistic. The jump a few days ago made United the stock price of Capital also jump," Manager Lu replied. "How long do you think it will take to get to 15 yuan? How strong is their resistance?" Lu Feng asked. "According to the current mood, I am afraid that it will reach 15 yuan next Friday. There are active buying funds on today's market. It can be seen that they are protecting the market. The amount of funds is about 150 million. As of the close, it still fell 7%, Manager Lu replied. "Starting from tomorrow, enter the market to go short, drive the stock price to 10 yuan, and collect funds below 10 yuan. Open more accounts. You don't need to buy too much, just 20%. Control the average price at 9 yuan. More, after Lu Feng ordered, he stood up and prepared to leave, and then said, "It must be completed before September 20th. Mr. Lu, we can suppress the stock price to less than 10 yuan, given our size, but it is impossible to acquire 20% of the stock for less than 10 yuan, Manager Lu explained with some embarrassment. We have such a large amount of funds, the more we buy, the higher the price will go. You just need to operate normally, and the market will pave the way for you." Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, "Remember to report the situation to me every day. I will return to the mainland in a few days and communicate by phone." Manager Lu stopped talking. "You can't say that you can't do this, right?" After going downstairs, Lu Feng went back to the company and took a look around. Everything was stable. There was good news recently. The team led by Zhang Ruhing had made new breakthroughs in the field of wafers. As long as the materials are good, within 3 to 5 years, in terms of wafers, we can catch up with the world. Liukan is still in Fuzhou, mainly to maintain the relationship with Sharp. Now Hurricane Semiconductor's second-generation products are being tested, and Liukan is also the busiest person. As long as there are no major problems with Sharp, Lu Feng plans to let Liukan come back and let Zhu Lidong past. After understanding some daily affairs, Lu Feng called the 3 small shareholders of United Capital and invited them to have dinner together. These 3 people held 23% of the shares. During this period, Lu Feng had been in contact with the 3 people. In this environment, it is easy for people who are not determined to convert their assets into US dollars and run abroad. During this time, the 3 of them obviously couldn't handle it. It was still the Regent Hotel. Lu Feng booked a private room and arrived at the private room at 7:30 in the evening. The 3 of them waited for a long time. "Hello, Mr. Lu," an old man in his 60s stood up slightly. "Mr. Wang, please sit down." Lu Feng hurriedly stepped forward and pressed his shoulders gently. The remaining 2 people were both in their 60s. These 3 were old people in United Capital. They invested in Mr. Chen back then, and all the way to now. Since Su Yorong arrived, the 3 of them have obviously aged a lot, and they all look pitiful. Lu Feng also knew a little about what happened to the 3 of them back then. They were considered small wealthy people in Xiangjiang. They were so fascinated by Mr. Chen that they couldn't make it any further, so they invested in it because of a fool. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be the most successful investment in his life. It is said that there are different opinions on how Mr. Chen obtained the securities license back then. The common theory is that he got it through sleeping. Lu Feng is not very good at this. Being able to sleep with a woman with a securities license is really awesome. After sitting down and serving food, Lu Feng chatted about Mr. Chen. The 3 of them looked shy and did not want to mention what happened back then. They were in their 40s and Mr. Chen was in his 20s. They were all criticized by old men. It's okay not to mention the past. Mr. Su and I have known each other for many years. In fact, we shouldn't have had this meal, but Mr. Zhao and I are old friends. We talked a lot at a dinner last year. You are already so old. I really can't bear to have this little asset turned into ashes overnight." Lu Feng looked at the 3 of them, took out the full contract he signed with Su Yorong, handed it over and said, "Take a look at it. I believe you will know what is going on after reading it." The 3 people's faces turned green after reading the full contract. They were not the management of United Capital and were not sensitive to the changes in the financial circle. Now even women like Su Yorong were scared, which was enough to see the ferocity of the matter. "Today, we are having a secret meeting. Don't tell Mr. Su and be strict with your words. As for me, I do have plans to acquire United Capital. You may be thinking, Xiangjiang is almost over, what do I want from United Capital?" Lu Feng he smiled and said, "You can't make money, but I can. Because I'm from mainland China and have been working in the mainland for many years. To be able to make a company so big, I must have magical powers that can reach heaven. I won't explain these. You may not know that Wall Street's current attack on Hong Kong, whether it is mainland China or Hong Kong, has its own response office. I am involved in both parties. I even went to a meeting today. I know the latest situation best. I'm going to tell you a piece of news, but you must not go out and tell it, Lu Feng said with a serious face. Mr. Wang was the first to express his position. Mr. Lu, you said that we are famous for our tight-lipped ethics in Xiangjiang, and we will never go out to talk nonsense. In this messy situation, it would be terrible if we could protect our family. The other two people also nodded one after another. At this time, the dead Taoist friend must not die, the poor Taoist. Let me put it this way, it may not last a month. Most of the funds of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority have been consumed. Wall Street's offensive is still fierce. International hot money is gathering here. The whole world is shorting Hong Kong, Lu Feng said solemnly. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the three people changed. Isn't it the night before the collapse? How long has it been since you couldn't hold on anymore? Where is the mainland? Mr. Zhao said anxiously. Don't you care? No matter. But the mainland's foreign exchange is only over 100 billion, and the mainland's economy is also in a slump now. It's impossible to allocate it all to support here. This is a weighing process, and we haven't made a decision yet. Lu Feng lit a cigarette and looked at the three of them and said, as for the equity in your hands, I tell the truth, I am not willing to take it with a market value of 5 billion, because as long as we wait a few more months, the market value of 1 billion maybe I can receive it. The problem is that I am in a hurry. I am going back to the mainland in a few days and have to go to the capital to do a lot of things. If things go well, then I am willing to buy it at a market value of 5 billion. I will contact you later. Of course, you can also consider whether to sell it in the next few days. Sell? Mr. Wang said hurriedly. Think about it again. I will be back on September 4th. Of course, there is no hope for Xiangjiang. There is still a certain situation that can be overcome. By then, the market value of United Capital will naturally come back, Lu Feng advised. The three of them have lost their attention, for fear that the Hong Kong dollar will plummet tomorrow. Even if they sell it for 1 billion Hong Kong dollars, they will only have a few million left after converting it into US dollars. Then they will really lose a lot. Latest website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1252. Latest website. Mr. Lu, don't think about it. We are willing to sell. The current market value is more than 10 billion. We are willing to sell it at a discount of 40%, preferably directly in US dollars, Mr. Wang said eagerly. Lu Feng shook his head when he heard this, picked up the wine glass in front of him, gestured towards the three of them and said, think more about it, maybe it will be fine, and this thing is not necessarily the same. As for me, I will definitely not take advantage of you. The three of them looked anxious, but Lu Feng had already said so, so they could only wait. At 10 o'clock in the evening, the dinner ended. Lu Feng drove home and booked a ticket for tomorrow. Before leaving, he wanted to bring some gifts to Duo. When buying gifts, Lu Feng thought of Meow Meow in the United States and gave them to her. I picked some and asked someone to take them over. On September 1st, Lu Feng returned to Shenzhen. Zhang Xiaoyan was not as busy as before, and spent half of her time on Duo. Hua Xia was handed over to professional managers. Now half of the factory is used for OEM work, and the company's focus has also changed. Switched from daily chemicals back to cosmetics. Lu Feng didn't know the exact amount of losses, but when they chatted, Zhang Xiaoyan was always worried about being blamed by the major shareholders. The company can still maintain it at present, but the asset-liability ratio has increased. If the market goes bad, it may become insolvent at any time. Lu Feng comforted her with a few words and said nothing more. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the orientation party officially started. This school is considered wealthy in Shenzhen, and the ostentation is not small. The parents who came were all dressed up and greeted each other. People who didn't know it thought it was some kind of party. Several big bosses also exchanged polite words with Lu Feng, and many people looked in this direction, but no one came forward to say polite words, and Lu Feng was content to relax. "Didn't I ask you to speak on stage? Have you prepared a manuscript?" Zhang Xiaoyan looked at Lu Feng and said, "Don't embarrass the child. During the orientation meeting in the first year of junior high school, I was not allowed to go on stage. The children have been in school for the past year, so it's my turn," Lu Feng asked angrily. "The representative of the first year junior high school students is the district chief of this district," Zhang Xiaoyan said. "When I came, you were all overseas, and you couldn't come even if I informed you." As the new students entered, there was a song party first, with the children singing and dancing, and a song to express gratitude to their parents, which made many people cry. Representatives of the new students gave speeches, the principal spoke, and representatives of the parents of the new students gave speeches. Then the second grade students came on stage to express their determination to study hard. This is a year of laying the foundation. Strict management is required to advance knowledge to a higher level. Next, we invite Mr. Lu, the father of Lu Duoduo, the parent representative of the second grade students, to take the stage. After the host finished speaking, Lu Feng stepped forward. When passing by some students, Lu Feng could hear the children talking to their parents. "This is Duoduo's father, her family is rich, how is Duoduo doing in school?" When passing through the student seats, Lu Feng listened to the praises all the way and finally got on the stage. "Good morning to all classmates, parents, and friends. I am the parent of Lu Duoduo, Class 2, Grade 6. Class 4. Mr. Lu, it's Class 4, a teacher not far away said hurriedly. "I'm sorry, I'm the parent of Lu Duoduo from Class 4. I'm usually so busy that I don't even know which class my child is in." Lu Feng looked around the scene and said, "My overall management of the school, during the first year of junior high school, I'm quite satisfied, but the second year of junior high school is a link between the past and the next, which is very important. Once you fall behind in the second year of junior high school, it will be particularly difficult to catch up in the third year of junior high school. I hope that schools can pay close attention to children's learning, especially game consoles. There are too many game consoles on the streets now. As soon as they finish their homework, groups of people run out to play games. There is also the problem of puppy love. They have also entered the developmental stage, so special attention should be paid to this issue. My girl is good looking, I know this, so I am also very worried and hope that the school can strengthen it. At the same time, children are under great pressure to study. At this age, some things will not be told to their parents, which can easily lead to problems. I suggest the school is adding psychology teachers. If the school feels that the budget is insufficient, I can personally bear this part of the money, and there is nothing else. I hope that the students can study hard and make progress every day." As Lu Feng finished speaking, the parents of the second grade students applauded and whispered to each other that Lu Feng's speech was very good, especially the part where he paid for more psychological teachers in the school. After walking off the stage, the principal looked at Lu Feng and said, "Mr. Lu, I think psychology teachers are particularly necessary. What you said is great. Children at this age are not willing to communicate with adults. I will definitely implement this matter as soon as possible. Everyone, there are 2 psychology teachers in the class." Lu Feng wanted to say that it would be good to have 2 students in Duoduo's class, but he felt it was too stingy, so he smiled and said nothing. By the way, one more thing. Vice Mayor Lu knows that you are back and wants to have a meal with you in the school cafeteria at noon, said the principal. Vice Mayor Lu has his own phone number, but instead of calling, he comes to school to have dinner with him. Lu Feng had a good guess in his mind and nodded in agreement. Returning to their seats, the third-year junior high school students came on stage. They pledged to study hard and get admitted to the best high school in Shenzhen. Lu Feng didn't really want to see this. Just as he regained his attention, a woman who was almost 40 years old came over and said to Lu Feng, "Dad Duo, I have something to tell you." "Say it," Lu Feng looked at her and said. "Your children, it's too much trouble. My child has some money and spends it all on her. When she comes home, she makes a fuss and asks for money to buy gifts for Duo. Not to mention her academic performance. Last semester, she plummeted. You also said that you can't fall in love prematurely, this matter must be dealt with," the woman frowned. Lu Feng saw a chubby little boy in the front row staring at him, obviously dissatisfied that his mother was looking for Lu Feng. "We'll talk to her about this matter later. It's best for parents to handle it. If it doesn't work, ask the teacher to divide the class into another class," Zhang Xiaoyan said. "Is it possible that it's not my child's problem?" Lu Feng still knows Duo relatively well. "That guy is a scumbag. It's impossible to like that little boy. Isn't it your child's problem? Are you using money to bully my child? Mr. Lu, you are also a reputable person, what you say is unreasonable," the woman became anxious. No, the problem of puppy love I'm talking about is that both children are happy. The problem with Duo in my family is that there are more people chasing her." Lu Feng looked at her and said, "It's not a problem for children to look like their parents. We, as a couple, have had this kind of trouble before." The parents of the male classmates heard Lu Feng praising his family of 3 in such a strange way. If they hadn't seen him as rich and powerful, they would have started scolding him at this moment. "Leave the child's affairs to be resolved by the child." Lu Feng looked for Duo and waved to her. Duo came over and said hello and very obediently, and then told her personally about her relationship with her male classmate. She didn't like this classmate at all. The problem was that the male classmate forced himself to stuff a gift into her desk. The male classmate's mother called her child over and Duo told him personally that she didn't like him and asked him to study hard. Lu Feng could see the tears that this classmate was holding back, and seemed to hear the breaking of a fragile heart. The parents around him were also muttering. What kind of family would want to have sex with another girl? After the orientation party was over, Lu Feng took Duo to the cafeteria, telling her to study hard along the way. Of course, Lu Feng has also experienced this age group, and he knows that no matter how many words he says, it will be the same as farting in the ears of children. In the staff cafeteria on the second floor of the school cafeteria, the principal was the host, Duo's head teacher and 2 substitute teachers were accompanying them, and Vice Mayor Lu also rushed over. At the dinner table, both the principal and the teacher were praising Duo for being a sensible child. Lu Feng also smiled and said nothing. He knew very well whether his own child was sensible or not. As for the psychology teacher, I will ask the person in charge of the charity fund under my name to contact you when the time comes. This is the salary of dozens of people, which is not much money a year. Everything is for the growth of children." Lu Feng looked at it. Teacher Xiang picked up the wine glass and said, "This kid is quite naughty. You should worry more about it and work hard." "Mr. Lu, you're welcome." Several teachers stood up slightly and touched Lu Feng with their wine glasses. Vice Mayor Lu on the side said, "I also have to thank Mr. Lu for adding dozens of jobs to the city. I do it for the sake of the child. I really can't get away." The mother of the child originally wanted to expand production because she had no one to take care of her, so she had no choice but to give up the expansion. No matter how much money you make, if the child is wasted, it will be a failure. Yes, Lu Feng glanced at Duo Duo beside him and sighed. Huash's factory in Tianjin is no longer open. Vice Mayor Lu seemed to have grasped something. I'm doing OEM. The market for daily chemicals is too fierce, so I mainly focus on cosmetics, Zhang Xiaoyan replied. Enterprises must develop, and families must also develop. Tianjin is not developing well, so why not develop in Shenzhen? Don't worry about your children, I will take care of them. Vice Mayor Lu patted his chest and said, I pick her up from school every day and help her with her homework. If I can't provide guidance, the government agencies can provide guidance. Lu Feng was secretly shocked when he heard this. He didn't know how much the unemployment rate was now, but judging from Deputy Mayor Liu's urgent look, the situation in mainland China was very bad this year. Even Shenzhen started to grab businesses like this. Zhang Xiaoyan looked embarrassed. It was because she couldn't continue running the business. Even if she moved back to Shenzhen to build a factory, she would still be unable to compete with Libai, whose base camp was in the south. I believe that Vice Mayor Lu can take care of the children on behalf of Xiaoyan, but you can't give your children maternal love. Lu Feng smiled and said, no one can replace this. I am also busy in Xiangjiang. The recent employment situation isn't it less than ideal? It's okay, but there is a gap. Can Mr. Lu arrange some productive factories to come back here? The conditions will be absolutely preferential and we will treat you according to the treatment of foreign investors. Vice Mayor Lu smoked. It doesn't have to be a semiconductor. You can also do businesses such as clothing, shoes and hats, toys, food, and small household appliances. Lu Feng could tell that they wanted labor-intensive enterprises with low barriers to entry, so that they could easily arrange a large number of laborers for employment. He also wanted to help, but at this time, whoever opened the enterprise closed down, and people couldn't find jobs, so they didn't dare consumption. How to consume if you don't have money? The economy has fallen into an endless loop. Either we can use external forces to import a large number of enterprises to stimulate employment and capital inflows. There is another way, and that is to release a lot of water. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1253. Latest website. It is basically impossible to rely on external forces in the current international environment. However, no one has done this kind of thing before. Someone needs to stand up and promote this matter with great courage. Based on Lu Feng's understanding of historical trends, someone finally stepped forward in 1999 and issued more than 400 billion in national debt. Since then, debt has become one of the mainstream ways to stimulate economic growth in the country. Lu Feng could hear Deputy Mayor Liu's eagerness at the dinner table, and he also understood the urgency of the current situation. But Lu Feng, alone, could turn the times around. Impossible. No one can change the times. We can only struggle in the times and drift with the tide. The current shortage of jobs in the country is in the tens of millions, requiring a large number of simple and repetitive positions. Lu Feng couldn't help, so he could only change the topic to the students. The meal lasted for more than an hour. Before leaving, Lu Feng looked at Vice Mayor Lu and said, "We have no plans to come back this year. But I can give you a guarantee, that is, I will be back at the end of next year, and I hope you can support me more by then." "Okay. I hope I'm still in Shenzhen at that time." Vice Mayor Lu looked a little lonely. In his eyes, Lu Feng's words were just for show. Back home, the two of them had a rare moment of leisure. They sat on the sofa in the living room and had nothing to say for a while. It seemed a bit quiet. Zhang Xiaoyan said, "Now that the state-owned enterprises in northern cities are reforming, there is really a huge layoff, and there are no more people to make money. The jobs are all going south, and workers' wages this year are not as good as those in the previous 2 years. When I came back, I saw people laying pavements on the roadside. The environment is just like this. No one will change it in a short time. You should pay more attention when you are alone. Lu Feng came back and watched some media. Car snatching, house invasion, thefts began to increase. I will pay attention. Security in the villa area has been strengthened recently. I heard that a house was robbed in the past few months, and no one in the family was left alive. Zhang Xiaoyan sighed and said, in this world, it sounds scary. Don't let Duo run away alone. The little money she has on her is enough to make people think evil. Lu Feng lit a cigarette and said, I will go to the capital the day after tomorrow and return to Xiangjiang when I come back. Let's spend August 15th this year in Xiangjiang, and you can take Duo with you. There's still half a month left, let's talk about it later. The two of them said nothing more. After a long time, Zhang Xiaoyan talked about Duo's interest classes again. It seemed that apart from work and children, they had nothing else to communicate with. 2 days passed by in a flash, and Lu Feng set off for the capital. This trip was mainly about Hurricane Semiconductor. Although there was no big problem, Lu Feng was still worried. The first batch of purchases must go in, otherwise there will be more and more problems later. The harder it is. This time, not only Lu Feng, but also the team from Tianjin took over the second-generation Hurricane product for installation and testing. Computer motherboards, processors, and memory are the main products of Hurricane, as well as mobile phone business lines. The previous Jiaxin mobile phone technology has been completely retained. Lu Feng was preparing to come back at the end of 1998. The first thing he did was to resurrect the mobile phone and develop multiple lines at the same time to form several major sectors: finance, real estate, technology, and the internet. He no longer had to raise money for such a large investment, and he would join the United after obtaining the capital. He contacted more companies in the mainland to go public, quickly increasing the profitability of United Capital, and used the funds to invest in the mainland through investment, borrowing, etc. Within a few days, news of the Hong Kong stock market crash came one after another. Some important media in the mainland began to report, criticizing Wall Street and Soros, calling them bandits. Lu Feng is going well in the capital. In terms of semiconductors, it is not like many years ago when he could just find someone to compare performance and parameters. The current leaders know nothing about these. When he heard that he only needed 50% of the price of Intel, you can buy 80% of the performance of Intel, and it immediately feels like a great value. On September 4th, the two parties signed a letter of intent for centralized procurement, in which the basic price was determined. Hurricane Semiconductor will have a batch of large orders next year. On the morning of September 5th, Lu Feng received a call from the Xiangjiang office, asking him to rush back immediately. The situation was not good. Lu Feng now understood how to deal with these people. He said on the phone that he would arrive as early as September 7th. Firstly, he was busy with work, and secondly, he had to rush from the capital to Shenzhen and then to Xiangjiang, so there was no time. On the phone, Lu Feng learned that the Hong Kong Monetary Authority only had tens of billions of funds left. It had been hit hard by several waves in the past few days. They couldn't bear it because the mainland media labeled them as bandits, and many of them were scolded. Angered, Soros publicly stated in the Wall Street Journal that they were confident of defeating Hong Kong. On September 6, Lu Feng set off from the capital in a leisurely manner and landed in Shenzhen at noon. He took his family out for dinner and returned to Xiangjiang on September 7. Lu Feng didn't call for a taxi to pick him up, but took a taxi to the office. The driver told Lu Feng all the way about the past few days, and his words were full of pessimism. People have openly said that they are trying to get rid of us. These people are simply bandits. Look at the disasters suffered by countries such as Thailand, Myanmar, and Vietnam. The driver sighed helplessly, and finally cursed a few times. It will get better, Lu Feng comforted. After getting off the car and paying the bill, Lu Feng walked towards the office. There were many people in the living room. Today's market situation was a mess. It can be said that a stock market crash was going on at this moment. Sun Hung Kai's market value once fell below 50 billion. The Hong Kong dollar has been beaten to the point where it can't hold its head up. Shorts are raging on the market like wild beasts. Which retail investor dares to go long at this moment? Looking at the dark sales orders, I am afraid that I have already been scared out of my wits. Disputes broke out at the scene. People from the Hong Kong Monetary Authority wanted to hand over the funds to them, but people from the mainland disagreed and thought there was something wrong with their methods. They said that these people did not trust their compatriots. At the same time, Lao Dong couldn't stay any longer. He rushed to Beijing early this morning, hoping to get financial support and explain the situation. Lu Feng brought himself a pot of tea and sat there watching them argue, as if he was an outsider. The two sides were arguing about the current situation. The leader looked at Lu Feng and said, "Mr. Lu, you have an idea." Lu Feng spread his hands and said with a half smile, "I am a mainlander, what can I do? Now is not the time to be sarcastic. The market can no longer hold on. If the remaining tens of billions of funds are smashed tomorrow, it will only take one day. We must come up with a response plan today. I still say what I said, without the Hong Kong dollar, there will be no Hong Kong stocks. We have to have both. The current passive defense is too weak, and we need to take the initiative," Lu Feng said slowly. "Both of us should not argue about who will use the money. Leave it to Lu Feng. Give him the bulk of the funds. ICBC and the People's Bank of China will be responsible for the stock market and the Hong Kong dollar," the person in charge set a basic tone. The meeting lasted until past 7 o'clock in the evening. They just wanted the money to be handed over to the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, and believed that they had the ability to turn the tide. The two banks, the Workers and the People's Bank of China, were not familiar with this kind of financial battle. All the money belonged to the state. If the money is spent and the effect is not achieved, then you will really become a sinner through the ages. The money is placed in two banks and Lu Feng is the manipulator. If something goes wrong, someone can be promoted. What's more, choosing Lu Feng is not a blind choice. He has been the manger in the Thai baht defense war. This matter is submitted. Go up, the higher UPS will definitely agree. After consideration by the organization, it was decided to let Lu Feng trade the Hong Kong dollar, while the stock market would be left to the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China. They would focus on a series of large-cap stocks such as Chung Kong Holdings and Sun Hung Kai, and protect the large-cap stocks. Everyone has the confidence to continue to do more. On Wall Street, Soros is being interviewed. This interview will be published tomorrow morning. Facing the reporter, Soros looks very confident. He even regrets not increasing leverage now. On the other hand, Robertson's Tiger Fund has been making crazy money in the past half-month. Looking at the situation in Hong Kong as a whole, do they still have industry? The economy of any place is supported by industry. When industry is gone and only finance is left, it is a castle in the air. Such a place should not be shorted, Soros said with a smile to reporters. This is not robbery, and I am not a robber. I am helping them. The bubble will burst, just like the emperor's new clothes. I just told the truth. They're not happy. Reporter, last year on the Thai baht, as far as I know you had an opponent. He was a young man from China. He is now in Xiangjiang. Do you have anything to worry about? Ha 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 ha. Soros laughed and said, Lu Feng? Where is he? Sorry, I didn't see him. Maybe he was in the collapse of the market. Currency devaluation and stock market crash are not something that one person can save. If you really want to save things, you shouldn't come to me, but let Xiangjiang resume its manufacturing industry. As the reward came out, Lu Feng suddenly became the mainstream topic again. Everyone was asking, where did Lu Feng go? On September 8, Lu Feng officially took over the capital account, and then the media began to report it. Ta Kungpao conducted an exclusive interview with Lu Feng. "Mr. Lu, what do you want to say to Soros, who said that Hong Kong's economy is the emperor's new clothes?" the reporter asked. "Whether it is the emperor's new clothes or not depends on whose hands Hong Kong is. When it is in the hands of the United Kingdom, the world will say that it has a developed economy, happy people and lives and works in peace and contentment. But in just a few days, it has become a manufacturing hollow. Globalization, the tragic image of financialization, has become the emperor's new clothes," Lu Feng said to reporters. "There are two possibilities. One is that the child who pointed out the emperor's new clothes was blind and suddenly grew eyes after July 1st, the other is selective blindness. Do you have any response to Soros's public statement asking where you have been? Hong Kong is very healthy, and the Hong Kong dollar is very healthy. Today's situation is caused by bandits entering the house. Since he asked me where I went, I will tell him that Grandpa is here." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1254. Latest website. After the interview, Lu Feng immediately called Manager Lu to ask about his position. Manager Lu replied that he had purchased 13% of United Capital's shares. The problem was that with Manager Liu's purchase, which lifted up the stock price of United Capital, which was originally on a downward channel. Not only are they buying, United Capital is also repurchasing. The amount is not large, but this is very important for the confidence of the stock market. Now United Capital's stock price has been stuck at 9.9 yuan, and they dare not rush buy. The remaining 7% must be completed within 10 days. If the stock price does not go down, just grab the funds directly, Lu Feng ordered. The financial war in Xinjiang lasted for about a year in the previous life. Lu Feng felt that it wouldn't take that long this time. There should be no big problem before November. According to Lu Feng's estimation, the most intense period of the war should be this month. Once the market stabilizes, securities stocks will be the first to rebound and stabilize. At that time, it will be no less difficult to get stocks from Su Yurong. Lu Feng even suspected that Su Yurong had now noticed that someone was fishing in troubled waters and took the opportunity to buy stocks at low prices, but Lu Feng didn't care anymore. After hanging up the phone, he went directly to the agreed location, where the three shareholders of United Capital were already waiting impatiently. When they met, Mr. Wang, who was in his 60s, stood up and poured tea for Lu Feng. The three of them were as attentive as little followers. "No, no. Just let the waiter do it," Lu Feng hurriedly said to the three of them. "You three have been missing for some time, what do you think?" "Mr. Lu, didn't you say you would be back on the 5th?" Mr. Li's face was as wrinkled as a Shar-Pei dog, and he looked much older than before. The past week or so has been too painful for the three of them. They watched the stocks in their hands cut in half, and the Hong Kong dollar also plummeted against the US dollar. If priced in US dollars, the value of these three people has shrunk by 90%. They also thought about mortgaging their stocks to banks, but banks now define stocks as ultra-high-risk assets and do not grant mortgages. They have approached some former bosses and want to sell them at a valuation of 5 billion, but it is said that Xinjiang is back, its global financial status is gone, and there is the Shanghai Stock Exchange in the mainland, and there is no room for Xinjiang's financial companies to exist. Regardless of whether it is from a short-term or long-term perspective, this is a company that is bound to fail. Even if someone buys it, it will definitely be a large securities company. The three of them scratched their heads anxiously and couldn't sleep all night long, fearing that Lu Feng would never come back. How could he be unhappy that he was back today? Something at home has delayed us. Have you thought about it? Lu Feng asked the three of them. The three of them nodded like pecking at rice, eager to sign the contract now. Seeing how happy they were, Lu Feng understood in his heart that they were now like retail investors who had been frightened by the market. If they didn't kill them now, how could they wait? Lu Feng pretended to be embarrassed, picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip without saying a word. Seeing this, the three of them became even more nervous. Mr. Wang said, "Mr. Lu, didn't you say you wanted to buy it? I really didn't expect that the situation would deteriorate like this in a short period of time. The current situation is that even if the stock market crashes, I have to give up. In addition, I am not satisfied with my trip back to the capital to do business, and I am a bit shaken." Lu Feng looked at the three of them and said, "What's more, the secondary market value of United Capital is only HK$ 5 billion now." Although the three of them are impatient, they are not stupid. The fact that Lu Feng came today means that he wants to buy it. What he said now is just to lower the price. But the power is stronger than the people. In this situation, people are lowering the price, and they don't dare to say anything. "Mr. Lu, please tell me a price," Mr. Wang said in a low voice. Lu Feng lit a cigarette and began to ponder. His eyes swept over their faces from time to time. Lu Feng could tell that these three people really wanted to sell. If they couldn't sell their shares today, they might cry. "I won't bully you. I also have a problem with this matter. I want to acquire it at a valuation of 3 billion, Lu Feng gave a trial price. Lu Feng originally wanted to cut him in half, but they couldn't accept it and scared him away. "Mr. Lu, the price has almost been cut in half. United Capital is a not so big brokerage company, but now the valuation of 5 billion has basically bottomed out. Some people are already buying in large quantities, and Mr. Su is also actively buying back." Mr. Li became anxious and said to Lu Feng, "Even if the market gets worse, can it still drop another 50%? But don't think so. There is a saying that in a bull market, you never tell the top, and in a bear market, you never tell the bottom. Let me tell you this, Wall Street's big offensive has not yet come, and the next month will be the most brutal." Lu Feng he took a puff of smoke and said, "I might as well tell you the truth. I just accepted the full authorization from the mainland office. I will be responsible for the defense of the Hong Kong dollar. The mainland does not have much funds. How many days can it resist? No one knows. In addition, I am not responsible for the Hong Kong stock market. I can also tell you, large cap stocks will be an important battleground. As for small cap stocks, it depends on your own fate. As you said, how much money does the company have to buy back its shares? Can you stop retail investors and funds? How much money do you have to buy back shares? Mr. Lu, when doing business, it's a matter of negotiation. Let's do this. Let's set a valuation of 4 billion. Let's give it a valuation of 1 billion, said Mr. Wang. Lu Feng shook his head and stood up to leave. Originally, he wanted to scare them, but when they reached the door, the three of them kept their composure and did not ask him to come back. Lu Feng paused and strode out quickly. These three people have been frightened by the market. They will definitely not be able to hold on in the next month. It is very likely that the market will open at a low price tomorrow, and they will be frightened and hand over their equity. United Capital stocks continued to fall, and Su Yurong couldn't resist it at all. She had already noticed that someone was buying below 10 yuan, and she suspected that Lu Feng had come in. In addition, Jin Wanlian poured in hundreds of millions of Hong Kong dollars without even a splash, and the once good sisters were no longer close to each other. She bluntly said that it was a bottomless pit, so Su Yurong no longer resisted, and the little she had left in her pocket, the money has to be prepared for the future. People. When you go uphill, you are all friends, helping you and helping you. When you go downhill, there is never anyone to help you stop the downward trend. Su Yurong claimed to have friends all over Xiangjiang, but at this moment she couldn't find anyone who was willing to pay to help her. After much deliberation, she settled on Lu Feng. In the evening, as Lu Feng's interview was published and broadcast, the financial community in Xiangjiang instantly became excited. Phone calls continued to come to Lu Feng. Most people wanted to know how much money the mainland brought with them and how determined they were to resist Wall Street's attacks. Some people are not optimistic about Lu Feng, thinking that this is irresponsible to Hong Kong. There were so many calls that Lu Feng didn't bother to answer them. He simply turned off his phone, unplugged the phone line, and was left alone. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the nanny came over and said that Su Yorong was here and wanted to see him. Let her come in. Lu Feng stood up and walked towards the living room, secretly wondering what he was doing. Why can't you get through on the phone? Su Yorong strode in, saw Lu Feng and said, why are you still blocking people at your house? Even I can't. As soon as the interview was broadcast, my place almost became a bazaar. With too many phone calls, Lu Feng pointed to the sofa next to him and said, sit down. Have you eaten? How can I think about eating now? Su Yorong sighed, with a sad look on his face, and looked at Lu Feng and said, are you sure this time? United Capital's stock price has almost halved recently and then halved again. It will get better, Lu Feng comforted. Su Yorong vomited out all her feelings over the past few days, and started crying as she spoke. Her whole body was as bright as a little girl who didn't understand the world. Lu Feng held her in his arms and comforted her. The nanny stood aside waiting to serve, but she watched the two of them, one crying, the other comforting them, and then they kissed each other to comfort them. The nanny walked out quietly, and then ordered people to prepare bedding and put out bath water. Like a weak and boneless little animal, Su Yorong leaned on Lu Feng and slowly went upstairs. The bed was already prepared. After a passionate kiss, the two rolled over and put on their clothes, followed by a fierce tearing off clothes and pants. Su Yorong gently held Lu Feng's neck with a pair of jade arms. She was full of tenderness, with a hint of pear blossoms and rain, and said softly, only at this moment do I know who is good to me in this world. You are the only one who is good to me. Really? Lend me 500 million before the market opens tomorrow. As long as you survive this period, everything will be fine. Lu Feng was suddenly stunned when he heard this, then took her hand off and sat by the bed. What's your reaction? Su Yorong frowned a little and said unhappily, 500 million, Hong Kong dollars, not US dollars, aren't you willing? It's not about money, Lu Feng said solemnly. What's that? Su Yorong was a little confused. Isn't this a matter of money? I suddenly felt guilty just now. I can't be sorry for Xiao Yan. Lu Feng took a deep breath and said with annoyance on his face, I am a father, this kind of thing is too bad. Su Yorong was completely frozen there. This is not your first time. Xing Xingzi has been grinding it out so many times. Are you going to do this with me now? You two are divorced. Besides, this isn't the first time between us. Is it interesting that you use such words to prevaricate me? Su Yorong said dissatisfied. I can't be sorry to Feng Xia, I am also a father. Lu Feng looked at her and said seriously. When the hell did you become a father again? Su Yorong became angry, raised his hand and slapped Lu Feng on the back several times, scolding, you can't pass the exam, why have I slept with you all these years? You won't help me at this time. Just try to be comfortable. It's not just about two children, it's about two women, Lu Feng said with a frown. You have a third child? You've had many of them without telling me in the past few years. Su Yorong was completely anxious. Not the child, but my mother. Your mother is a rural woman, what's wrong with her? It costs 1.5 billion US dollars, but you can't afford 500 million Hong Kong dollars. Su Yorong was almost angry to death. The motherland is my mother, Lu Feng replied. Su Yorong couldn't bear it anymore, pushed Lu Feng and cursed, Cao Nemas. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1255. Latest website. You have come up with so many excuses, but you just don't want to borrow. You want to say that this money is used to support the Hong Kong dollar. I agree, but for us $1.5 billion, HK $500 million is not even 1/10. I originally thought that based on our friendship, this wouldn't be a big deal. Su Yorong looked a little disappointed, and sighed longly, if you don't lend money, I won't lend it. For another thing, you must promise me. United Capital is in crisis now, and I must step up control. You also know that United Capital is now controlled by Hurricane Capital. You lend me 6% of Hurricane Capital's equity. Lu Feng turned back to look at her and asked with some confusion, are there any relationship between the two? Don't worry so much, do you want to borrow it or not? I can't borrow it. I just raised money and I borrowed the equity at will. This is irresponsible to shareholders. Lu Feng got out of bed and started to get dressed, and said, I will be very busy recently and don't have much time to communicate with you. You always talk about the friendship over the past few years, and people, the less important they are, the more they have to talk about it. Have I not been good enough to you all these years? Su Yorong got angry, picked up the clothes on the bed, threw them at them, and shouted, how many things have I done for you? Did I take revenge on you when you betrayed me? Didn't you stab me with a knife? Didn't I give you money when you did something for me? How many times did I give money to your sisters and brothers? Did you do something for me? Didn't I help you? Back then Sun Hong Kai was I have secretly invested in United Capital. Mr. Feng will eat you up, why bother? Lu Feng shouted at her, people like you owe you a little love, and you can say it for the rest of your life. Lu Feng. You bastard. Su Yorong's eyes were red from crying. She stared at Lu Feng and said fiercely, I won't get better, so don't think about it either. You are an internationally wanted person. It doesn't matter, Su is a wanted criminal, Lu Feng snorted coldly. Su Yorong racked her brain and thought about his weaknesses, but she couldn't find Lu Feng's weaknesses in any aspect, whether it was family or career. Su Yorong's slightly ferocious expression softened a bit. He wiped his tears, got out of bed, hugged Lu Feng and said softly, I really have no way out. I beg you, okay. I'll kneel down for you. That's enough. Not enough. Not enough. How much is it worth for you to kneel down? Lu Feng lit a cigarette and said, let's not engage in such nonsense. If you want to borrow 500 million, you can bring the collateral. Su Yorong's heart was completely cold. She couldn't believe that the man in front of her who had been so gentle with her could be so cold. Without saying a word, she started to get dressed, and said in a cold voice, I have been sleeping with dogs these years. Who am I with, who can't lend me 500 million? Then you are really a bitch. I'm just curious, who can lend you 500 million without any mortgage at this time? Lu Feng smoked and said, I am completely benevolent and have a clear conscience. Su Yorong put on her clothes and before leaving, she kicked Lu Feng's feet and cursed. Lu Feng followed out and shouted to the nanny, send off guests. Night had fallen, and Lu Feng was sitting on the balcony drinking tea. This should be his last piece for the month. What was Su Yorong thinking? Lu Feng knew very well that this was a choice that he could not make soft-heartedly. She can kneel down to beg for herself today, but tomorrow she may not even have the chance to kneel down to beg for her. New York, at 10 o'clock in the morning, the Ta Kung Pao interview has been published. Saras and everyone have read this newspaper, but they don't care about Lu Feng's clamor. What they care about is the end of the mainland. So far, fully half of the $100 billion has been consumed. The remaining more than 50 billion can be fought for a while, and at most another 30 billion will be added. The mainland will definitely not continue. They even think that 50 billion is enough. It is impossible for the mainland to fight for Xinjiang until it runs out of ammunition and food. If the total is only 100 billion in foreign exchange, if it is all spent, won't mainland companies stop importing? With the opening of the foreign exchange market, it is the turn of European banks to appear today. As one of the leaders, John can be said to be the master of the Hong Kong dollar foreign exchange market, killing the gods and Buddhas. The huge amount of selling orders comes out, and there is almost no resistance below. The two sides only have a tug of war, smash it down, and the long side will recover a few points. Hong Kong dollar futures plunged 6 points as the market closed, marking their worst ever loss. Europe and Wall Street held a conference call to make some arrangements for Lu Feng to start trading tomorrow. They studied Lu Feng's methods in the Thai baht incident. This is a person who takes the initiative in the foreign exchange market and will make trading decisions based on the news. People. According to them, Lu Feng's methods are more Western-oriented, publishing news, raising prices, and attracting international hot money and retail investors to go long. He is a person who can incite emotions. There was nothing to say in Hong Kong overnight. Early the next morning, Hong Kong stocks opened at a low level. United Capital fell directly below 9 yuan. The trading volume of several large-cap stocks of Chung Kong Holdings and Sun Hung Kai exceeded 500 million in an instant. It was still difficult to resist the decline. The host of the stock channel on the radio even burst into tears. This is definitely a stock market crash, an unprecedented stock market crash. At 11 o'clock in the morning, trading in Hong Kong stocks was suddenly suspended. It was announced that it was caused by a machine failure and resumed in the afternoon. The host of the TV program advised everyone to buy stocks and save Hong Kong. Lu Feng sat at home and watched the rhetoric on TV and wanted to laugh. This was not the time to feel sentimental about his family and country. No fool would buy stocks at this time. When does a fool buy stocks? Of course it's time to go up. Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu. Someone was shouting loudly in Lu Feng's yard. Several nannies stopped them, but the three of them still tried their best to rush in. Lu Feng stood up and looked outside, and saw Mr. Wang and the other two pushing the nannies and rushing in. Stop holding them back, let them in. Lu Feng quickly walked out of the room, stood in the yard and said to the three of them, "Why are you here looking for me? Mr. Lu, let's sell it now." With a valuation of 3 billion, Mr. Wang gasped urgently and said to Lu Feng, "I'm calling you to turn off the phone. I can't reach you." Oops. Damn it, Lu Feng patted his head and felt that something big had happened. No wonder this morning was such a mess and he didn't receive a single call. Yesterday, the phone line was unplugged and the cell phone was turned off. No one could be found at all. I'm in a hurry. The valuation is 3 billion, right? Sign it now. Lu Feng hurried back to the room, took out the prepared contract, and signed the contract with the three of them in less than 5 minutes. Then he turned on his mobile phone, called Wei Yandan, and left the change of equity to her, and then hurried out the door. While walking on the road, Lu Feng received 7 or 8 phone calls, saying that he had overslept and was on his way over. The people at the Hong Kong Monetary Authority couldn't bear it anymore and had to unplug the network cable this morning because they had no choice. When we arrived at the office, the conference room was already crowded and the corridors were crowded with people. Everyone looked bitter and resentful, and the atmosphere was extremely solemn. As Lu Feng arrived, everyone got out of the way. Lu Feng entered the conference room and met with several leaders. The first thing Lu Feng asked was, "Do you really want me to be fully responsible? Now that it's like this, I'm not only if a capital account is to support the Hong Kong dollar, do I still need a chance to speak? A window to speak to society. Okay, we can let some media publish what you want to say on the headlines every day. Also, I need some permissions, such as mainland investment in Hong Kong. You can't restrict me just because I boast a few words, Lu Feng said to a few people. What everyone lacks now is confidence, and I need to improve it. Ken. Sure enough, the happiest time to say yes is only when you can't hold back your feces or urine. Then I am the plenipotentiary representative now. Lu Feng walked out of the small office, looked at the dozens of people outside, glanced at the stool next to him, stepped on it, and shouted to everyone, "Hello everyone, I am Lu Feng. From now on I will be responsible for the defense of the Hong Kong dollar, and I want to tell everyone good news. The time has come to make a fortune. The United States is going to rain down US dollars on us. The Hong Kong stock market has not fallen to the bottom, it has fallen below the earth. In the next 100 years, there will not be such a good opportunity." Why do I say that? Because I just got an explosive news. Mainland China will concentrate all its efforts to invest in Xinjiang. People in major provinces in the east, west, south, north and central must tighten their belts and let Hong Kong shine. As soon as these words came out, everyone's eyes lit up. If there was this kind of support, the future would be bright for Xinjiang and even the day after tomorrow. The leader of the small office heard Lu Feng's violent remarks as soon as he opened the door, and his blood pressure almost exploded. If these words were spread back to the mainland, then, wouldn't he be crazy? But he had just agreed, and now everyone was in a better mood and did not dare to refute Lu Feng rashly. The Hong Kong dollar can only be good if the Hong Kong stock market is good. No matter what happens in the stock market in the afternoon, it doesn't matter anymore. It's just a grasshopper after autumn. It's the last time to jump. Starting tonight, everything will change. There was applause, some couldn't help themselves, and some had tears in their eyes. After everyone dispersed, Lu Feng was immediately pulled back to the small office. Several people stared at him and asked, "Is he going crazy? Doesn't he understand the situation in the mainland? The wave of layoffs is raging and people are in a bad mood. Now they are saying that they need to tighten their belts to support Hong Kong? What do they think? So don't spread this news back. A terminal illness requires strong medicine. Let's take a breath first," Lu Feng said to a few people. "Besides, everyone in Xinjiang knows that I am a big mouth, and I am nothing. Officer, it won't have any impact afterwards. Have you ever heard the joke about getting promoted and curing diseases? There was a small official who worked hard and managed everything. He was not promoted for many years and became depressed and sick. Many doctors could not find anything. Then a charlatan came. After hearing about it, I whispered something in my ear, you were promoted to the prefect." The junior official sat up in shock, recovered from a serious illness, died suddenly a moment later. The family was puzzled. The doctor exclaimed, "The medicine was too strong." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1256. Latest website. Several people couldn't laugh when they heard this joke. When things have developed like this, they have no choice but to kick Lu Feng away and go ahead on their own. Who will do it? Many people are willing to accept praise for success, but how many are willing to be scolded? This matter needs to be reported to the top, and we can give you a reply within 2 hours. If it is passed, you will be interviewed and make a public announcement. Okay, I'll wait. Lu Feng left the office and sat in a side hall. During this period, 2 clerks brought a lot of information. Lu Feng looked through the information and gradually felt confident. However, he was shocked by the intensity of yesterday's fierce battle. Yesterday, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority poured in us $17 billion. Still did not resist the decline. A manuscript in the folder said something like this: the pressure on the top is huge, and hundreds of millions of dollars can't last more than 3 seconds. People's confidence is low, and there are even fewer people who are instigating the evil. Lu Feng put down the folder and called Manager Lu. Today's position in United Capital was full. Currently, 23% of the equity was purchased and divided into 6 accounts. The average price was 9.7 yuan. Lu Feng told them to stay put and ignore the rest, and then called Wei Yandan. She had just completed the equity change agreement with 3 shareholders and the money had already been sent. Lu Feng is now the major shareholder of United Capital, and Hurricane Capital is also the actual controller of United Capital. Su Yorong is only a minority shareholder holding 5% of Hurricane Capital, plus the percent she secretly acquired. 40 shares cannot control Hurricane Capital. In the evening, with the change of ownership, the news was notified to the United Capital Board of Directors. Su Yorong now understood that he had little chance of winning. She can still struggle now, that is, unite all shareholders and retail investors to fight against each other, but this is futile. With the amount of funds Lu Feng has, he can easily increase his equity by another 5% from the secondary market. At that time that's absolute control. There was a notification letter about the change of ownership of the company's equity on the desk in the office. Su Yorong looked at it silently, she couldn't believe it. From the planning at the end of last year to now, it is like a dream. Lu Feng is as simple as harvesting a pasture. God has been helping him in the past few months. A financial crisis has hit her even at the door. Less than. Su Yorong was unwilling to give up. As long as she waited a few more months, there would definitely be problems with Hurricane Capital's funding in March next year. But in just a few months, she couldn't make it. Originally, according to Su Yorong's idea, even if he invested in Hurricane Capital and didn't have enough money, he could pledge his equity in exchange for funds. United Capital's stock could not fall like this. Plus, with Jin Wanlian's help, he had connections in Xiangjiang. So wide. She never dreamed that the hurricane would drain her cash flow by itself. When the financial crisis came, no one wanted to mortgage the equity. The stock plummeted again. Jin Wanlian was sold out by short sellers. In times of crisis, connections became sellers. I feel unwilling to think about it, God is always against me. Su Yorong took a deep breath and took the tissue aside to wipe her tears. She did not return to poverty overnight. She still holds more than 40% of the equity of United Capital and 40% of the equity of Hurricane Capital. But after selling these shares and converting them into money, what can she do? Su Yorong was confused for the first time. She was no longer the teenage girl who had just walked out of the mountains. She felt that there were infinite possibilities in the future. She now understood that starting a business now was incomparable to what it was 10 years ago. All walks of life were extremely crowded. As for being a small shareholder, Lu Feng would not let her feel at ease. As long as he did not pay dividends for a few years and continued to raise funds and expand shares, it would be considered a good thing for Lu Feng to have half of her 40% equity left. Can't lose. Why should I lose? Su Yorong sniffled, and the mountain girl's stubbornness began to show up. She took out a cigarette from the drawer and lit a cigarette, secretly thinking that if she couldn't get better, Lu Feng couldn't get better either. Why should I lose money to a man twice? Not to mention Su Yorong, even if she is mute, she will never suffer the disadvantage of being mute. As dusk approached, Su Yorong couldn't think of a good way. She really felt like she had no support at all. The feeling of powerlessness made her cry several times. But when she had no other choice, she suddenly remembered her gender. Yes, I am a woman and a beauty. Su Yorong had an idea, so she put out the cigarette in her hand, picked up the phone and called the gynecological hospital, and made an appointment for a set of physical examinations. At around 6 o'clock in the evening, after discussion, it was believed that extraordinary people were needed at critical moments, and it was agreed that Lu Feng would be the leader of the financial task force to operate the financial counterattack and also serve as an external spokesperson. At 7 o'clock, he accepted an exclusive interview with the TV station. Facing the reporter, Lu Feng changed into a suit and looked in high spirits. He tried his best to put a smile on his face and make him look more sunny. "Okay, let's get started, Mr. Lu. I should call you Team Leader Lu at this moment," the reporter said with a smile. "It's all right, just do your part." Today, both the Hong Kong dollar and the Hong Kong stock market have experienced a particularly severe decline. The Hang Seng Index has dropped from more than 17,000 points to more than 7,000 points now. Many investors say that this is not a cut in half, but a loss of toes. Others, "We lost everything." The reporter looked at Lu Feng and asked, "As the leader of this financial task force, do you have anything to say to the investors?" "Let me start by saying that I am in charge of the Hong Kong dollar, and the problem with Hong Kong stocks is not big. I am here to tell you something, that is, if you haven't sold it yet, don't sell it. Whoever sells it has the same leak. I see some news media are everywhere saying, 'What happened in Xiangjiang?'" Lu Feng looked at the reporters and said, "Nothing happened in Xiangjiang, everything is fine. Hong Kong is back home. Some people with evil intentions cannot see the reunion and are just causing harm behind the scenes. The Hong Kong stock market is very healthy. Everyone should seize the historical opportunity like 7 o'clock, because I know that the mainland has a very large amount of funds come in and support the foreign exchange and stock markets. At the same time, we also have plans to invest and build a more beautiful Hong Kong. So, can you tell us about the current funding situation?" the reporter asked. "I know everyone is unsure, so I'm here to tell you the bottom line. The first payment is $100 billion, and more funds can be available at any time. Everyone is thinking, does the mainland only have more than 100 billion in foreign exchange? We are a monetary sovereignty, we have friends internationally, we are a big country. From now on, whether it is shorting the Hong Kong dollar or shorting Hong Kong stocks, it is a very dangerous thing." Lu Feng did not use extreme remarks during the interview, mainly because he was afraid of causing unnecessary trouble. It was already 7:30 in the evening when the interview ended, and the foreign exchange market started at around 8 o'clock. Lu Feng simply ate a meal and rushed to the foreign exchange trading place. There were more than 20 traders at the scene, all of whom were top-notch traders in the industry. Lu Feng had a brief meeting with these people and learned about the situation some time ago. Now hot money is relatively strong. They will bet first, and then European funds will come on the scene. The hot money will be withdrawn immediately if it has 10 points of profit. These days, it's mainly European funds, and I heard it's the Schroders Group over there," the manager said. Schroeder Group, Lu Feng was thinking secretly in his heart. He really didn't look up and look down. He said to everyone, "Tonight, we have one goal. First, kill the hot money, kill these small money traps, beat them hard, and let them go. They don't dare to come and deal with the big guy again." After Lu Feng finished the meeting, he took out his mobile phone and called Sean directly to understand the situation. The other party repeatedly denied that he was shorting Xiangjiang, saying that he didn't know much about this kind of thing, which was what some companies in the City of London were doing. However, he could help ask about the relevant situation, but Lu Feng needed to reveal some information to him. As an exchange of information, Sean called 10 minutes later and informed Lu Feng of the financial situation there. This time, it was mainly Wall Street companies. "Okay, I understand. If you are in there, come out quickly. I am taking the lead in this matter now. I can tell you this, after tonight there will never be the same life as before," Lu Feng said. I hung up the phone immediately. He doesn't care whether Sean listens or not. If he retreats, he will be less stressed when he is promoted. If he doesn't listen, one person will be killed and a group of people will be buried. It's open. Lu Feng turned back and looked at the values displayed on the big screen. Outside the glass window, a group of leaders were watching. Lu Feng saw that 160 million Hong Kong dollars were thrown out as soon as the market opened, and they were neatly arranged above. One to sell for 30. With 160 million in funds at the back, funds are constantly rushing out, the trading volume is rising, and the overall distribution is very stable. What's the current price? Lu Feng asked. $9, 6 cents, 7 cents, and 3 cents. Make way for them. What is being thrown out now is some hot money, give it a little sweetness. Lu Feng stared at the screen and said, keep 10 yuan. All orders will be withdrawn to 10 yuan. Although the trader didn't know why he did this, he could still follow the instructions now. The keyboard crackled, and all the funds originally holding the price of 96 yuan were evacuated, and a big negative line jumped out instantly. The leader sitting outside felt that his heart was about to jump out of his chest. Someone stood up and shouted, Lu Feng, what are you doing? Did you fall so much? Let them close the deal at 10 yuan and increase the volume. Lu Feng ordered the trader, hold on to 10 yuan and put in the hot money. In Europe, Sean looked at the computer screen and frowned. He didn't listen to Lu Feng's words at all, but the trend on the market was a bit strange. It shouldn't be. Now that they have funds, they are not as strong as yesterday, Sean asked confused. The Hong Kong dollar can't hold on anymore. Now throw it all away. There will definitely be a big negative trend tonight. It's no problem to take 30%, a middle-aged man next to him said excitedly. No. No. No, 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 Sean shook his head repeatedly. Looking at the order list below, he felt that something was going to go wrong, so he hurriedly said, convert all funds into Hong Kong dollars, no more playing. Why don't you play anymore? It's obvious that I can't hold on anymore. Sean didn't say anything and just let the trader do what he did. In 10 minutes, 1.2 billion Hong Kong dollars were sold at a price of 10 yuan, more than half of which was sold with hot money. Lu Feng stared at the screen and secretly calculated in his mind, and said in a deep voice, pull it up. Pull it up to 9.5 yuan, and kill all the funds that just rushed in without leaving any money behind. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1257. Latest website. In the next second, hundreds of millions of funds took the initiative to buy, quickly pulling up the Hong Kong dollar. A red pillar stood up like a skyscraper, rising straight up. The huge amount of funds directly exceeded the original 96 yuan and stopped at 95 yuan. At this moment, hot money around the world is starting to panic as they stare at this huge increase. The funds that they just rushed in have begun to show floating losses. They can only pray that Wall Street and the financial city will act quickly to keep prices down. The main focus of these hot money is fast forwarding. Go out quickly and touch 3 to 5 points in the chaos every day, which is considered a complete victory. London, Schroeder Securities Trading Center. John couldn't sit still while looking at the situation on the market. Today's market has changed a lot compared to the previous days. It has changed from blindly defensive to offensive. How dare you resist? John was a little disdainful, and several managers next to him also expressed dissatisfaction with the backlash. Smash it down, put 2 billion at the position of 96 yuan, John knew that just relying on them to rush forward would not be enough. They had to put the money out and let the hot money rush. The hour before the closing was only theirs. The main battlefield. The pressure to sell orders increased again. Lu Feng snorted with disdain when he saw this situation. If he didn't do it, he would be cowardly. The hardest part was to let the hot money come in. It seemed that Schroeder's group didn't plan to spend much money. They placed 2 billion Hong Kong dollars at 9.6 yuan, the trader reported. Stick to $95, and at the same time, give me $1 billion at around $94, Lu Feng said solemnly, who hasn't counted their wealth yet. Hot money and retail investors saw the 2 billion Hong Kong dollars on the short side hanging above their heads, and their confidence suddenly increased, and they all wanted to buy it. Some retail investors in the New York Stock Exchange even shouted that the Hong Kong dollar was about to fall. There are 2 billion Hong Kong dollars piled up on the top 100 sellers' seats. What are you afraid of? Such a large amount of pressure will not increase the price, someone shouted. Tiger Fund seems to have not come out today. Let's take a look. I heard that the Hong Kong dollar side has changed people, someone said cautiously. Are you still speculating in foreign exchange? Have you ever heard that if you place an order, it will go down, and if you place an order, it will go up? What do you know? You don't know the situation in Xinjiang? It's just an empty shell, not even as good as the Thai baht. As the man spoke, he went to the trading window, opened a short order and threw it out. Then he looked at the screen in the lobby and held his breath. It's falling. It's falling. What are you doing here? The bill is out, 1 billion. Some people even doubted whether the display screen was wrong and ran to the window to ask. They were told that it was true. The total order volume of Hong Kong dollar buyers currently exceeds $1 billion. On Wall Street, Soros and Robertson frowned as they looked at the current market situation. The reason why they did not take action today was because of a piece of news. Lu Feng said that he had arrived with hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign exchange. This kind of critical news needs to be confirmed, so let the people from the financial city take the lead first. Today's market is also quite anxious. Lu Feng holds high and hits high, without any fear. Does he really have hundreds of billions? Asked the Goldman Sachs president. This person is very cunning. There is no definite information at the moment. From my point of view, the mainland will not take out all the foreign exchange and leave it to someone like Lu Feng who has no official status to manage it. Soros pondered. There are 1 billion on the plate. I suspect he only has 1 billion. It's actually very simple. As long as you eat these 1 billion, you will know the truth, Robertson said, holding his cheek with his hand. This is equivalent to nonsense, just like saying that to test whether a tiger eats people, as long as someone hits the tiger with a stick to see if it will be eaten. Not to mention all the foreign exchange, even if it were handed over to Lu Feng, not only Wall Street would not believe it, but John would not believe it either. Of course, Lu Feng would not be allowed to operate blindly. There were as many as 30 people sitting outside the glass of the trading room, and there were large monitors. If Lu Feng had a seizure, he would definitely be dragged out immediately. The market has fallen into a stalemate, and the trading volume is also shrinking. Both sides are testing how many bullets are in the other side's gun. This situation lasted until the end of the morning session. As the trading came to an end, everyone in the trading room stood up and started applauding. Lu Feng walked out of the trading room and shook hands with several leaders and said, "We barely managed to kill a group of hot money." The afternoon session is the beginning of the confrontation. If you can use this amount of funds to maintain the market and still make a slight increase, you really have a hand. It's much better than the previous method of just setting up a defensive line and being attacked by the opponent. Several people from the Financial Monetary Authority came over and shook hands with Lu Feng without saying anything. However, they were a little puzzled as to why the indiscriminate selling orders suddenly disappeared today. The reason for the kind of selling that happened before was because they had measured all the bottom lines. People knew how much you weighed and they dared to attack you after just a little calculation. They didn't need to win you too much. If they won you only $1, they would win. Lu Feng took the initiative to buy in, and then showed his attitude towards the funds. If they dared to buy in, they would be greeted by even larger funds. In addition, he brought hundreds of billions of funds before the market came, so they had to weigh it carefully. Everyone is not competing to see who can fire the first shot, but who can fire the last shot, so no one dares to act rashly. Lu Feng took a sip of water and then started the review meeting. Through the transaction data, he found that Wall Street did not pay out a penny, it was all hot money and the financial city. Among these data, Lu Feng discovered Sean's account and secretly thought that this was an old fox who didn't trick him. Lu Feng was in a meeting, and several giants on Wall Street couldn't stand it. This kind of trading is very unfavorable to them. It will make many people think that the Hong Kong dollar has bottomed out, and the short sellers are not strong enough, and they have entered a sideways trading or even a bottoming stage. After the trading is over, their understanding of Lu Feng will definitely release good news. By then the clarion call for counterattack has already sounded. Therefore, someone must hit the tiger with a stick today to prove whether the tiger can eat people. I called the financial city and was verbally abused on the phone. The word waste appeared most frequently. You are the most unqualified collaborators I have ever seen. Are you scared by such a person? Who can accept this kind of deal? You are destined to lose territory and financial waste. If you can't do it, get out of the way and we will do it. Understand? Naturally, the person on the other end of the phone also cursed furiously, scolding them for not even paying a dime, and for following the agreement instead of letting them bear the burden alone. Robertson was naturally not happy with this kind of rhetoric. He said that his funds had been disguised as hot money for a round of short selling. Their poor connection resulted in this situation. He asked them to quickly eat up the bottom billion when the market opened in the afternoon. They will follow. 1 billion. If it's not 10 yuan, the big guys in the financial city wouldn't dare to take it hastily, not to mention that they have thrown too many Hong Kong dollars these days. According to the funds agreed by both parties, they are almost empty. If they continue to fight, they will become the main force. In the end, the short side of the financial city said that they would only do this 1 billion, and they would quit when they were done, leaving Wall Street to handle the rest, asking them to lower the Hong Kong dollar to about 11 yuan today. As the afternoon trading started, there was still no big fluctuation in the first 10 minutes. Suddenly, the seller increased his chips. The piled above exceeded 30 billion Hong Kong dollars, which was close to 4 billion US dollars in US dollars. They're going to take action, shouted an experienced trader. Be prepared to buy. If they dare to smash it, we dare to pull them in, Lu Feng said solemnly. John was already making preparations, fearing that he would be counterattacked after eating the funds below, so he piled up Hong Kong dollars worth 5 billion US dollars above to avoid being robbed of the $9 position by Lu Feng. Lu Feng watched them continue to accumulate chips with a look of disdain on his face. He held the trader's chair next to him with one hand and muttered to himself, "Is he betting that there are no bullets in my gun?" The next second, the selling orders poured down, and the position of 9.5 yuan was instantly smashed through, rushing directly to 9.6 yuan. In just 10 seconds, the funds directly broke through 9.7 yuan, and the exchange rate went straight to 10 yuan. In the New York Stock Exchange and the London Stock Exchange, retail investors stared at the monitors and shouted, "The fight is starting. The fight is starting. Use a huge amount to smash through. It's going to be more than 10 yuan this time. It's probably 12 yuan tonight. If you go in for 10 yuan, you can get 20% off." The hot money that had just been buried also cheered up at this moment, and they followed up the selling. In less than 2 minutes, the Hong Kong dollar was directly hit to 10 yuan. At one point, it reached 10.05 yuan, and there was not a cent left of 1 billion US dollars. All were eaten. How much money does it cost to reach the position of 9 yuan? Lu Feng asked. $58 billion, the trader replied. Everyone, go long, don't eat one bite at a time, all are worth 9 yuan, and you have to be fast, Lu Feng shouted in a deep voice. The straight downward trend suddenly picked up, like a rocket rising into the sky. Within 5 seconds, the transaction volume in US dollars reached 2.5 billion US dollars, and within 20 seconds, the transaction volume was $4.7 billion US. In the financial city, John and several managers saw Lufeng's crazy money and panicked. They were not planning to throw the money into it. They could not do more work than agreed for Wall Street. Cancel the order. Cancel the order quickly. In panic, tens of billions of Hong Kong dollars were withdrawn, and the rest was eaten. There was no sound inside the New York Stock Exchange, and the reversal was too fast for everyone to react. Even the real-time exchange rate of the Hong Kong dollar on the large display screen flashed after images. $9. From $10 to $9. They knew that the battle between Hong Kong dollars would be fierce, but this was too fierce, even more heart-pounding than the previous Thai baht. Saras and the others, who were sitting in front of the computer and looking at the market calmly, now saw such a rapid rise, and everyone was panicked. Quick! Throw it! Robertson even stood up and shouted in panic. Hold on! Go up! Now they finally knew that this was a man-eating tiger. John was completely smashed through in one round. Unfortunately, the traders here were in a relaxed state and had no time to react. Lufeng spent $6 billion and saw that there was no pressure from above. How could he miss such a good opportunity? Keep pulling up. Back to $7 and $8, Lufeng yelled. He knew that this must be a problem with the other party's connection. After Europe was hit, Wall Street funds failed to keep up. As long as the exchange rate returned to the anchor rate of 7.8 yuan, a group of people who entered with leverage would be forced to close their positions, and even trigger a liquidation. Warehouse trading, this is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1258. Latest website. The exchange rate exploded all the way. Everyone stared at the crazy numbers, 8 yuan 6, 8 yuan 5, 8 yuan 3. The increase in foreign exchange was based on cents, but now it actually increased by 10 cents. When the value was raised to 8.2, 17 billion Hong Kong dollars were smashed out, instantly falling to 8.5, and then tens of billions continued to drop. All the way to force the exchange rate to the 9 yuan mark. Hold on to $9, Lufeng said solemnly. $9 is a very critical position. Just now a lot of people entered at the position of 9.6. If the leverage is 10 times, $9 is just at the position of closing the position. It has been rising all the way, and many people have been liquidated. Also, if you maintain the position of $9, the opponent's counterattack will not be particularly powerful, and the capital consumption will not be particularly serious. This is not only a matter on the market, but also the situation within the exchange. Although Lufeng claims to have 100 billion, the actual funds available in the account are only 50 billion, and the rest will be turned around later depending on the situation. Besides, tens of billions of dollars were spent on the first day, and there was no way to explain it to the leader. We had to balance several aspects, and things had to be done beautifully without spending too much. There were less than 20 minutes left before the market closed. Lufeng placed more than 3 billion yuan at the bottom, showing his determination to defend the $9 hurdle. The selling pressure began to decrease. Obviously, no one wanted to enter the decisive battle today. We will raise funds and inquire about information later. As the market closed, everyone at the scene took a deep breath. Beads of sweat could be seen on Lufeng's forehead. The Hong Kong dollar rose by 7% tonight. This increase can definitely be called a skyrocketing increase for the currency. The leaders outside stood up and applauded. Lufeng opened the door and walked out. He looked at everyone and said, "I barely fulfilled my mission. Well done. Not bad. Good job. Everyone came up to shake hands and exchange greetings. One of the leaders asked, "How long do you think it will take to defeat Wall Street?" "This matter is uncertain. It requires a process of confrontation and mutual testing. At the same time, this is not a personal matter. News needs to be released to the outside world to regain confidence." Lu Feng looked at him and said, "Drink some water, take a short rest, and we'll have a meeting." Lu Feng nodded and looked at the clock on the wall. It was already 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. It was destined to be a sleepless night tonight. At 3:20, Lu Feng walked into the conference room and asked about the current adjustments to the Hong Kong foreign exchange market and stock market. Negotiations were held. Lu Feng suggested that the practice of unplugging internet cables should not continue, as it will damage public confidence. At the same time, restrictions on short selling should be increased. The minimum amount requirements for opening short orders in the stock market should be raised again to prevent them from using 10 times the leverage to do short selling. Although the financial regulator, the Bureau, twice increased the minimum amount of short orders, but Lu Feng thought it was not enough. Securities lending needs to be expensive, financing needs to be cheap, so that everyone has a lower threshold to go long instead of short, and at the same time, a higher drop limit must be set. We cannot just smash things down at every turn and let the gains and losses be locked in a cage. Lu Feng even proposed setting up price limits and circuit breaker mechanisms for Hong Kong stocks. However, these proposals were rejected because, as Hong Kong is a global financial intersection, too many restrictions are not conducive to the flow of funds and will damage Hong Kong's reputation. The meeting lasted for 3 hours and determined several action plans. First, it encouraged listed companies to carry out stock buybacks, and at the same time, injected capital after the market closed, not less than 20 billion Hong Kong dollars, to reduce share liquidity. Simply put, this is the fate of the country. Take the throne. For Hong Kong dollars, we need to increase the margin for securities lending, limit the decline as much as possible, and restrict them from increasing leverage on securities lending. While increasing the difficulty of short selling, Lu Feng wants to raise the exchange rate in the market. According to this method of play, even if Wall Street still has hundreds of billions of Hong Kong dollars in hand, it will be difficult to move it. The meeting didn't end until it was getting slightly brighter outside. We had a simple breakfast together. Lu Feng had not rested for almost 24 hours, and he still couldn't rest. In order to cover up my tired face, I hired a makeup artist to clean it up, and accepted interviews with some morning news media to announce the news to the outside world. First of all, we congratulate team leader Lu on a good start. The exchange rate of the Hong Kong dollar has risen sharply by 7 points. I would like to ask the financial audience why it suddenly rebounded so much, the reporter asked. Of course, it is the determination of the country. Although the market was fierce last night, there was no risk, and even the short side was blown out for a time. This situation occurred because of the determination of the mainland to invest in Hong Kong. As far as I know, the relocation of the manufacturing industry in the mainland, it's already a sure thing. They are shorting Xinjiang. They are simply saying that the property market in Xinjiang is high, the debt ratio per capita is high, the manufacturing industry is hollowed out, and the entire society is biased toward deindustrialization. Then the manufacturing industry in the coastal areas of the mainland is not weak. A large number of high-end companies, such as Hurricane Capital, will rush to Xinjiang. This is also a great development opportunity for mainland companies. They can get better financing here, and outsiders can also invest better through Xinjiang. Mainland. This news is really shocking. The mainland is so big, and just moving some industries there will be enough for Xinjiang to digest it for a long time. The host looked at Lu Feng and said, "So, does last night's statement represent a complete reversal of this crisis?" This crisis itself is a man-made crisis. We have reduced stamp duty, raised bank deposit interest rates, and attracted Hong Kong dollars back from around the world. The external short selling force is very small. When large amounts of funds come in, it proves that we are not a fictitious person. Fatty Lu Feng looked at the host and said, I think today's Hong Kong stock market will start a surge. This is an artificial bear market, and the bull market that returns to normal will begin soon. When? The host wondered. Today, it is extremely stupid to short the Hong Kong dollar and Hong Kong stocks. Of course, some people will not listen to the advice and insist on being short sellers. Then I believe that the strong iron wall of the market will beat them to death, Lu Feng vowed. Road. During the interview, which lasted for more than half an hour, Lu Feng briefly talked about stamp duty reduction, increase in securities lending costs, state-owned capital entry, Hong Kong property market, stock market valuation, global value of the Hong Kong dollar, and mainland development. After the interview, Lu Feng couldn't hold it any longer, so he found someone to help him drive, went home and fell asleep. As the news was broadcast, countless people in the market abused Lu Feng. They no longer believed that the Xiangjiang stock market could be good. Among them were some people who had ulterior motives and were deliberately causing trouble. At 9:30 a.m., the Hong Kong stock market opened and immediately began to rise. 370 companies rose, and at 10 a.m. more than 400 companies rose. Wall Street collided head-on with the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China on several large-cap stocks such as Chongqing Holdings and Sun Hongkai. Superior. The two sides were frantically fighting over the opening price. The transaction amount of Yangtze River Industries alone exceeded 3 billion Hong Kong dollars in 1 hour, which made countless people look away. In response to the mainland's counterattack on the Hong Kong dollar, Wall Street wanted to seize back the Hong Kong stocks. In one morning, Hang Seng Technology's trading volume exceeded 50 billion Hong Kong dollars, breaking a record high. When Lu Feng woke up, it was already 5 o'clock in the evening. After washing up, he watched the news as soon as possible. Hang Seng Technology rose 0.7% today, with a record transaction volume of over HK$80 billion. Among them, Chongqing Holdings accounted for 1/8 of the transaction volume. 421 companies rose today. The Hong Kong dollar recorded the largest increase in history. Up 7% in a single day. Mr. Lu Feng, leader of the Financial Task Force, said that shorting the Hong Kong dollar and Hong Kong stocks is a particularly dangerous thing now. At the same time, he said that the mainland will specialize in manufacturing and transfer high-end industries from the mainland's coastal areas to Xiangjiang to make up for the loss of manufacturing in Xiangjiang. Reuters reported that financial experts believe that Soros does not have much funds in his hands. This time Xiangjiang has significantly increased the cost of shorting, which may make him worse. Many financial institutions have expressed their unwillingness to short Xiangjiang again, mainly because this time in mainland China demonstrated determination to defend Xiangjiang's finance. At around 7 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng arrived at the exchange, had a quick meal, and held a pre-market meeting. Everyone agreed to keep the money at 9 yuan and wait and see what they did before making any plans. Lu Feng believes that if you don't advance, you will retreat. You don't have to rush to pull up, but you have to run fast in small steps. It must be a red plate tonight. As the trading started, the short selling power tonight was much smaller than last night. Neither side showed any killer moves. The market fluctuated very mildly. As the market closed, the Hong Kong dollar stopped at 8.92 cents. Position. With the intensive release of news, Lu Feng continued to advocate mainland funding in the market. He even said in an interview that mainland China does not have much foreign exchange reserves, but there are tens of thousands of tons of gold hidden in the northwest, which were left over from the time of Qin Shi Huang. Immediately afterwards, a lot of junk media began to besiege Lu Feng, asking him to take out 10,000 tons of gold. Lu Feng also said that these golds belong to Qin Shi Huang personally. The mainland respects private property rights extremely, so he is currently communicating with Mr. Ying Zheng. For a week, the market fell into a pool of stagnant water. The highest trading volume of Hong Kong dollars on one day was only $3 billion. Big funds no longer moved out, but small funds continued to test. Hang Seng Technology has stabilized and is seeking to build a bottom. Even securities companies like United Capital have seen their stock prices return to around 11 yuan. After a storm, there was a suffocating silence. Lu Feng knew very well what the silence meant. Maybe Europe was beaten in the last round, and hot money began to be a coward, but Lu Feng knew that Tiger Management hasn't moved yet. This super hedge fund with 10 times leverage is definitely brewing an unprecedented storm. It's September 23rd, it's autumn today, and the Mid-Autumn Festival has passed. The original plan for Duo to come to Xiangjiang didn't happen in the end. Lu Feng rarely had half a day's rest and had a good sleep at home. In the evening, Lu Feng's cell phone rang. The nanny took the phone over and said it was from overseas. "Mr. Lu, is it possible for us to talk?" Soros's voice sounded on the other end of the phone. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1259. Latest website. Talk. What do you have to talk to me about? I can't decide anything, Lu Feng said towards the phone. I still suggest you persuade those people. This time you will really get into trouble. I have already submitted a protest against your restrictions on trading and increasing the cost of securities lending. Tomorrow I will go to Hong Kong to attend the annual meeting of the International Monetary Organization. I should meet your top leaders by then. Soros's voice was low. Urgently said, I'm calling you because I think you are a talent. This financial war is not just a matter of money. It is also a derivative of war control at a deeper level. We cannot fight in the sea area at your doorstep. We can only fight in various fields. What is the purpose of the war? The purpose of war is not to have war. This sentence sounds ridiculous, but there is an old saying in your country, which is to end wars with war. All battles will eventually return to peace. It is nothing more than a matter of conditions. I know that the top leaders of both sides have been communicating very frequently recently. You don't want to give up on Xiangjiang financial status internationally. I hope that through Xiangjiang as an export, it will bring more possibilities to the mainland, whether it is freight, finance, ports, etc., it will bring new opportunities. But we must also measure the overall value. Finance is by no means a financial problem. I believe this truth you understand. You should think carefully about why you were pushed out instead of an official figure. When the two parties reconcile, what position will you be in? Even when we sit together to talk, as long as the conditions are right, you, an internationally wanted criminal, will be. Where will it go? Lu Feng laughed when he heard what he said. He could tell that they had almost exhausted all the funds in their hands. I engage in technology with you, you created the Wassenaar Agreement, I engage in finance with you, and you talk to me about politics. What you say is nothing more than trying to make a cunning rabbit a dead lackey. I'm not suitable for being an official. I don't have that much to show for it. If the two countries are going to come together and bring about a series of changes, and my personal interests need to be sacrificed, then I'm happy to see it happen. Besides, you dare to go to Thailand now? Lu Feng laughed disdainfully and said, there are two of us, the boss, let alone the second. When the other end of the phone heard that Lu Feng was so stubborn, he also named some specific people and told Lu Feng that these people had communicated with them and wanted to sell Lu Feng. Lu Feng was really too lazy to listen to his conspiracy theories and hung up the phone directly. Although he was very confident and thought he was outstanding in the world, but the two countries were in trouble to this point, and finally a businessman shook hands and made peace. This kind of nonsense is really an insult to people's intelligence. Lu Feng is confident, but he doesn't think that the world revolves around him. On September 24, the annual meeting of the Global Monetary Fund officially kicked off in Hong Kong. Perhaps because of the reasons in Hong Kong, this time the IMF has domestic heavyweights participating. Lu Feng is a member of the Financial Task Force. The president was also arranged to receive him. The boss asked about the specific situation, and Lu Feng explained his analysis, and finally assured that he was confident to complete the task. Lu Feng took the opportunity to talk about the development of Hurricane Semiconductor and suggested that the country establish a large fund to support investment. The market situation in the past few days has been relatively mild. This may be an important communication opportunity at this time. Lu Feng rarely has 2 free days and does not have so many meetings. Through some media, Lu Feng learned that the boss met Cyrus at the meeting and told him face to face that there was no way out from shorting the Hong Kong dollar. The end of the month is coming soon, and the Hong Kong stock market has stabilized and surged since its opening. The Hong Kong dollar has remained at 8.8 yuan, and the daily trading volume is not large. However, many people think that this is a blunt knife, and it is not a problem to be wasted like this. It is best to decide the outcome in one battle and completely clear the obstacles. October 1st was the National Day in the mainland. This was the first National Day since Xianjiang came back. There were a lot of street activities in Xianjiang. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng walked out of the conference room. After discussion, he decided that he could no longer be passive. At the same time, their first batch of short-selling contracts is about to expire, and their funds are not large, but this is a window of opportunity. If they can defeat Wall Street in one wave, things will be better in the future. Lu Feng knew that the visit between the two parties was about to begin, and the superiors hoped that this matter would not be brought to the negotiation table. What's more, he also wanted to end it as soon as possible. If it had been delayed until 1998 like in his previous life, he would not have so much time and energy to take care of it. After all, Hurricane Capital still has a lot of things to do, and it is impossible to stay at the exchange at 8 o'clock every night and be busy until the middle of the night. With the opening of the market has been going smoothly. The hot money and retail investors that broke in before are now gone. The market has become very pure, and it is all big money playing the game. 1 hour after the market opened, US $2.7 billion was traded, which was slightly smaller than before. Lu Feng stared at the market and ordered, "Put a little more volume, and the weak market will go up." Traders took the initiative to buy US $100 million, pushing the Hong Kong dollar up by 0.23 percentage points, and then the short side began to respond by selling HK $1.5 billion. On Wall Street and the Goldman Sachs Securities Trading Center, the atmosphere in the conference room was a bit solemn, and everyone was divided on the matter of shorting the Hong Kong dollar. The Hong Kong dollar was pulled up, and the Hong Kong stock market was in fierce battle. Short sellers were unable to do what they wanted. Especially after the cost of securities lending was significantly increased, a group of people represented by Cyrus felt that there was not enough funds. I still have the same attitude. This time, the mainland has really used hundreds of billions of foreign exchange reserves, and coupled with the increase in the cost of securities lending, it cannot be defeated. Cyrus said to Robertson, "You have to recognize the current situation now. That is, from a financial perspective, adding leverage can indeed crush the Hong Kong dollar. The question is, are they going to crush you?" When I came back from Xianjiang, the news I got is that if an unpredictable financial crisis occurs, they will stop trading, or even directly reject all transactions, and the transactions will be invalid. Tell me, what will you do when that time comes? If you push a big country into a corner, what good results will there be? Cyrus understands one truth very well, that is, robbery is okay, but if you want to take away people's life-saving rations, they will really risk their lives with you. We must not force others to have no way out. The general situation is that after short selling, the currency depreciates. Because of the international status of the United States, small countries hold their noses and recognize it. But now the situation is different from other countries. We are going to fight with it. Are you here to make money, or are you here to fight? If it really gets to that point, things are no longer under Wall Street's control. If the situation gets out of control, it will lead to war. Now the upper echelons of the United States are unwilling to go to war. This is why while they are messing with you in finance and technology, while maintaining communication on the military front, they are jumping back and forth on the boundary of your tolerance to maximize their interests. If you really want to fall out with them, you will become cowardly. This meeting also let Soros know that the mainland is really serious about it. After returning, he has been trying to persuade him to stop. First of all, he can't get through it. Secondly, it is really serious and the mess is difficult to clean up. You invested so little, so you retreated so easily. What about us? Robertson was very dissatisfied with his old friend, and said in a deep voice, I invested $30 billion in this financial war, a full 10 times the amount. Leverage, the overall size of Tiger Fund is only $6 billion, you want me to leave now? Goldman Sachs Group is not very satisfied with Soros's words. Now everyone has invested too much and can no longer withdraw. This is a battle that must be continued. We are all in the same boat and will die together. The room fell into dead silence. Robertson smoked a cigarette and said abruptly, I now suspect that you took the money. What? Soros said in disbelief. All eyes at the scene were focused on Soros, with some suspicion in their eyes. 2 days ago, Robertson received a call from Lu Feng. Lu Feng asked him to surrender as soon as possible. This was a battle that was destined to be unwinnable. Financial war. Lu Feng didn't say anything clearly on the phone. He just told him that he had an old friend who worked on Wall Street and knew their financial situation very well. Mainland China was very well prepared. Don't work in finance for half your life, only to be sold by someone and become the takeover. At the same time, Lu Feng told him that on the surface, this friend was shorting the Hong Kong dollar, but actually using other international accounts to be long the Hong Kong dollar, because he knew how to do short selling very well. Undercover going long on the short side? This is definitely a shocking thing, but think about it carefully. What is a hedge fund? There are only two outcomes for the Hong Kong dollar, whether it falls or rises. How to ensure that you don't lose money? Suppress the short side and the long side. As long as the short side is weak, it will immediately turn into a long position. Whose money did I receive? From China? From Lu Feng. Soros thought it was ridiculous and said with a smile, a country where the poor are like pants. Everyone knows in their hearts that Soros would never do such a thing, because if he does this, he will never be able to engage in financial work in the Western world. This is equivalent to directly buying out the rest of his life. But the current decline in the Hong Kong dollar and Hong Kong stocks has made them eager to find someone to take responsibility, rather than suspecting that something is wrong with themselves. There is a saying in China that if you want to break the current situation, you need a decisive battle. Robertson stood up and said, as long as the Hong Kong dollar returns to 10 yuan, all problems will no longer matter. The problem is, so much work has been done before, today is the day. The phone in the conference room rang. The secretary walked over to answer the phone and came back and said, there is funds in the Hong Kong dollar market that are slowly rising, but the power is not strong. Do you need to increase the selling order? Throw it. Robertson stood up and said, I'll go there in person. I also hope that everyone will be united and set the Hong Kong dollar at 10 yuan first. The general trend will be on our side immediately. Latest website.